Oh, Coach, how you dealing with this, man?
Well, we're just doing what we can, working the phones at home and trying to finish our schedule. That's what I'm spending the vast majority of my time on is trying to get our schedule right for next season. And so just making the best of it.
Your schedule. Talking about this year, and we discussed it a lot here. It wasn't like the brand name, the Gucci Row, but it talk about some really good teams that had a ton of experience that were all. I mean, four of them were picked to finish their league, win their league. Bowling Green and a MAC, VCU and American. That's with Dayton this year. Utah State was picked to finish ahead of San Diego State in the Mountain West, and ETSU and the SoCon, which they won both. What went into your because those are tough teams to play with all of that experience early in the season. What went into your thought with the scheduling last year?
Yeah, I'm trying to do the same thing right now. I'm trying to identify East Tennessee State and Liberty for next year right now. And so that's the toughest part of the schedule is to find those really, really good teams. You know, Liberty had already qualified for the NCAA tournament. East Tennessee State had already qualified. They had both won their automatic bids. Bowling Green was actually in a good players. One of their guards had been hurt for part of the year. They'd already won 21 games and were the second seed in the MAC tournament. Had a chance with them in Akron to win it. And so, they're only one of the teams that we scheduled that we thought was going to be, sometimes when you schedule them, they got to win their games too. But Missouri State was picked to win the Missouri Valley, and they came in sixth place, sixth place, I believe, and kind of fizzled out a little bit. So they were the only one that didn't really perform like we thought they would perform. But we had some overperformers. Nicholls State came in third in the Southland and won 21 games. So, it's a little bit of a crapshoot, but you try to, guess as best you can. I've got a guy who runs a bunch of numbers for me based on who's going to come back and returning production and how they should do in their league and that sort of thing. And so I'm supposed to have those numbers back today. We've got 4 games left to get. We've got to get the 2 hardest ones to get are those games against Liberty and East Tennessee State, that sort of thing. And so we're trying to identify those couple teams, get those guys locked in, and then build the rest of the schedule out from there. So I tend to believe, the one thing that if you look at the tournament committee over the years, they reward teams that schedule well in the non-conference. And I think we'd have gotten probably a seed line better than what most people think and what most bracketologists had us as this coming year or this past year. If we were an 8, I think we'd have been a 7. If we'd have worked our way into the 7 range, I think we could have been a 6 based on our SEC tournament performance. But a lot of that was based on, we had the 8th ranked non-conference strength of schedule. So we can't really control what the league does and who the league gives us. Our permanent partners are locked in, and then they give us the other 2 this year was Mississippi and Florida. But you can control your non-conference portion of the schedule. And so that's what we try to do is to put the best non-conference, schedule together that we can, and the part that we can control and the part that we can own. We want to do that as well as we can to position ourselves as well as we can in March. And when you do that, yeah, you can lose to East Tennessee State. Some of those guys you can lose to, but that's part of it, and it doesn't hurt you. We lost at home to East Tennessee State, and that's not a backbreaker. It wasn't a backbreaker for us because we beat Liberty and beat some other solid teams like Bowling Green and Nicholls and some of those guys.
Yeah, 6 total non-conference opponents were picked to win their league. In that, you talk about you think you would have done enough at a tournament to get maybe an 8 or a 7. Now, a possible matchup, rematch with Arkansas. They scored 55 the first half, 99. We really had a lot of problems with dribble penetration on both ends of the court. You alluded to that we're going to do something different. What were you going to do differently defensively if you faced Arkansas again in Nashville?
Well, our strategy the first 2 games, which we won the first one, but it wasn't like we won it going away. Was, Arkansas has 3 great players, Jimmy Witt, Mason Jones, and Isaiah Joe. And, if one of them is off, they have a more difficult time beating you. Now, Desi Seals was playing a lot better, number 3 for them. He's who really hurt us when we went to Bud Walton. uh, our strategy the first couple games was, in our opinion, and I'm not saying we were right or wrong, Isaiah Joe was kind of he's more of a catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He doesn't, he doesn't get it off so to us was the easiest guy to take away. So we ran around with him and chased him around and tried to limit his touches. And he didn't score much against us. He scored 13 in the first game, and we messed up a switch, or we probably kept him at 5 or 6 points a game, or 5 or 6 points in that game. He didn't score much in the second game. But what we did by doing that is we lost a lot of help principles, and Coach Musselman's a good coach, and he just put Joe in a corner, and they just drove it, and we weren't helping, we weren't doing anything because we were just staying locked in on Joe, and that's why Jimmy Witt killed us both times, and that's why Jones. So at the end of the day, Joe's a 34.5% three-point shooter. When we played him the next time, we weren't going to chase Joe all over the place. We're going to keep our normal help procedures. We were going to just close out and contest Joe's threes, and if he hit 6 or 7 threes, we're going to have to get beat that way. But we were going to change what we did. We weren't going to chase him all over the court like we had done the first couple games. And I think we'd have had a little bit more success. But Mason Jones, I mean, he's such a good player. He's one of those guys, he's going to get a shot off no matter what. He's getting his shot off. Doesn't matter. It's just a matter whether he makes or misses it. But you have to do a great job of keeping him off the free throw line. That's where he goes from scoring 16, 18 points a game to 26, 27 points a game. And so 7 or 8 free throws that he gets. And when we went to Bud Walton, we fouled him on a 3-pointer and he got a 4-point play. We fouled him too much. We did a very good job in the first game of winning the free throw battle and not fouling him. And we killed him from the free throw line. In the second game, they killed us. And a lot of that was Jones, but we left our defenders on an island with Jones because we were hugged up to Joe. And so it all went together, and we had spent time in the week leading up to the SEC tournament trying to correct that and make sure we were going to be better against Arkansas the next time around.
You different stretches throughout this season, and a couple that come to mind with me, and you tell me, behind the scenes, why was it this case? But, the 50-50 games in non-conference play against VCU, Utah State, and USC didn't go our way. But then you get into conference play, Arkansas, Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State was just one shot. But A&M, Florida, Texas, they're kind of all going our way. What was the difference at that stage of the season as opposed to earlier?
Not much. That stuff kind of evens out. We were a little bit unlucky. It's very rare that, we outplayed Utah State and we outplayed Southern Cal. Not necessarily VCU. That was a little different deal with the environment. But those two teams, I mean, and even to an extent, Auburn in our game at Auburn, I mean, we outplayed those guys for long stretches. I mean, we deserved to win those games. And sometimes in basketball, you just don't win. But those were games we deserved to win and didn't win. I thought, I thought we were the better prepared team. We were the harder playing team. We executed better for, 36, 37 minutes of the game in all those games than our opponent did. And, we didn't get the result we wanted. And, sometimes that's just the way it is in basketball. It's like that sometimes in basketball. When you have a kid from Utah State, 10, their junior college transfer, he goes for 26 points against us. I don't know if he scored 26 points, an entire month the rest of the season, but he goes off and hits a huge three and does some big things. And Southern Cal's guards, who aren't great shooters, they make some shots, and that hurts us. And then Auburn, obviously at the end of the game, we could have done some things a little bit differently, but they hit some really, really tough shots as well. So that sort of thing happens, and it just evens out. There may be some games, particularly kind of the Texas A&M game at Texas A&M. I didn't think we played particularly well, especially in the second half, where Marshall Graves hits a huge three to keep us in it and allows us to win. And so, sometimes that stuff just evens out, where there's some that you deserve to win and don't win, and maybe Mississippi State at home, you don't deserve to win, and you throw one in and you win it. That's just basketball.
You believe Mississippi State was probably going to be out on the wrong side of the bubble? Man, they had a good team. Just maybe getting gone too late or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they start off 0-3 in league, and then they finished going like 11-4 or something like that in league, and had a really good team. I think they were the one bubble team that we had in our league, and I thought the tournament set up well. I think if they'd have beaten Florida, which they'd already beaten at Florida, and who knows how Blackshear was doing with Florida and what he was going to do. They had it set up where they could have beat Florida and played Kentucky and had a chance to beat Kentucky. And I think if they'd have won both of those, I think they would have gotten in.
Yeah, they would have had that. I agree. They had to beat Kentucky to kind of get over that hump. And go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, they had a great team, and that's just the way it is. They were without Witherspoon in the non-conference, and that hurt them. They lost to Louisiana Tech at home. They lost to New Mexico State the first game. He came back because their team. So it's tough to recover from some of those things.
Talk about a couple of coaching styles, if you will, and something. First of all, with your former colleague or superior, Shaka Smart. I mean, they go from the havoc defensive pressure, up at VCU, and way up there in steal percentages per possession. I mean, like top 5, top 10 in the country every year. They had been in the top 100 since he's been there. What happened? Why he didn't recruit to that pressure style or didn't employ it? What has happened? I'm sure you had a chance to visit with him briefly in Austin.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for him, but all that pressure stuff is predicated on having a point guard that can sit down and guard the ball and swipe the ball. And we had some really, really good guards at that level that when we were at VCU, and he recruited to that system and had guys who could do that. And at this level, it's just harder to find those guys, and it's harder to get those guys to do that. And you've got to press in spurts. We pressed a little bit this year, but we weren't necessarily trying to get steals. We were trying to create tempo and do some different things out of the pressure. And I think that's more what he went to. But if you look at the end of the year when Texas made their run, he was pressing a little bit more and doing some on makes and free throws and different different things. And I thought he did a nice job adjusting and getting his personnel to do what they need to do to pull off some big wins down the stretch.
And another one.
You talk of big conference tournament games. If that tournament had been played on Thursday, that game between Texas and Texas Tech would have been huge.
Yeah, I don't know if they could have recovered from getting smashed at home by Oklahoma State on that last Saturday. That was because they were they were right there before that, and that was a tough one. Well, I don't know. It'd have been interesting. Another team that you had a chance to scrimmage this year, and you talk about one of the real stories on the national level was Baylor this year. Where'd they come from? Playing 1 versus 2 at their place deep in the season against Kansas during Mardi Gras week. But one thing that Scott Drew, he finally got out of that zone. He's playing a lot more man. Do you know why he because I puzzled me for so long with all that length and athleticism that he consistently recruited. They would sit back in zone. Any insight or thoughts on the stylistic change in Waco?
Yeah, I think they had a smaller team, and I think he felt like they could be good at man. They were the best man defensive teams in the country. They were top 5 in defensive efficiency in the country, and I think he felt like that they need to transition if they were going to go from being a good team, which they had been, to an elite and a great team, and that's what they were this year, and that's what they're going to be again. They're going to be that again next year as well. So I think he felt like they need to transition and become better defensively, and that's certainly something we're going to have to do as well. Our defense is really what's holding us back from being, an elite program, a really good program that we all want to be, and we're a solid program now. And we would have made back-to-back NCAA tournaments, back-to-back, really good finishes in SEC play. So that's all great. But if we're going to compete at the next level, at the really national championship caliber level, we got to make some changes, and we got to make some changes defensively. And I think that's what Baylor figured out. They've been a really, really good program, made some Elite Eights, done some great things. I think you realize we're going to have to change up what we're doing here a little bit if we want to be, if we want to be great. And he certainly did that.
What changes are you talking about defensively? Because there were some lapses there. Was it you're in a recruiting?
Lapses is a nice one. Lapses is a nice way to put it. That's,
Well, we're
that's
trying
a,
to be nice, Will. I mean,
that was a kind way to put it. We were just flat bad. Um, you know, there's some qualities that all good defenses have. Um, you know, basically forcing teams to play a little bit more isolation, and we didn't do that. Being able to defensive rebound one, which we were fair in that, but our biggest issue was our transition defense and getting back and getting our defense set. So we've got to get really good at a few things. We were not very good at much of anything. We tried to be good at a bunch of stuff. You know, our closeouts were poor. Our help was, you know, we were just plugging holes the whole time. So we got to have something. You know, offensively, we're good because we've got a couple things that we can hang our hat on. Yeah, I know people get frustrated. We don't shoot it great from three and all that, but it doesn't matter if you can hang your hat on offensive rebounding and you got good spacing and you get fouled all the time and you're 78%, you know, free throw shooting team, which we were 76% free throw shooting team, which we were. You know, you've got some things that no matter on a bad night offensively, if we shoot, you know, there's games we shot 2 for 20, 2 for 21 from three and win. Because we got good spacing, can get to the offensive glass, and we get fouled and get to the free throw line and we make our free throws. And so we had, you know, we just had some things. We had some things we can hang our hat on offensively. We won't have a lot of that defensively. And so, you know, part of it's recruiting. We need some guys that are a little bit more defensive minded, and I think we've addressed that with the class. And you know, losing, I'm not one to make excuses, but not having Charles Manning really hurt us. He's kind of like he understands defense. He understands winning. He understands what it takes in certain times of the game to be smart and be sharp defensively. He's kind of like a defensive captain, and not having him out there was difficult for us in some of those games. And if you look at the guys who went off, it was usually, you know, a guard who could really beat us off the bounce, which is what Charles' specialty was before his foot was hurt, was guarding that. And, you know, we just didn't have a lot of rim protection in the back, blocking shots. And so, you know, we just had some things that we had to, you know, we had to work around, and it, you know, it made for some tough defensive nights. And eventually you just got to figure out, all right, can we get enough stops and just rely on our offense to outscore them for a while? And that's what we attempted to do. And we're pretty, you know, we're pretty successful at it, but we're going to get our defense fixed. We're going to get that fixed in the off season, and we're going to get better there. And, you know, we got to work out. We're not going to go from 179th, which we were this year, to, you know, to 9th, but we can go from 179th to top 25, top 50, you know, keep our offense humming like it is. I think it will be. You know, we're going to have a chance to really be a great program and have a lot to say when it gets to March Madness.
Yeah, I forget who it was. The game in Gainesville, they were saying, well, Cavante Johnson. I was like, well, he shot 8 layups and dunks in the first half alone. I'm like, come on, somebody just getting away.
That's the toughest. He's the toughest cover for us in the SEC. Johnson, he's a good player, but he can make threes, and you got to go out there and take away his three. Then he drives right by us. And, I mean, he torches us every game. I mean, it was more pronounced when we were in Gainesville, but he torches us almost every game we play against him. You look at his numbers. I mean, he'd be a top 5 pick if he could just play us. So, you know, he's one of the guys that's very, very difficult for us to guard.
All right, we're overdue for a timeout on Running Hester show, but I think he's fine. I mean, but anyway, the one thing with this thing was wide open this year. And I mean, you know, you coach in a league where Dayton's come from. I mean, gosh, they had a good look. You had a look because you're part of a doubleheader with San Diego State out in L.A. That were playing better at that time. But man, all the experience and age that they had, they were so damn smart. But anybody that you think, you know, besides the obvious, or just some thoughts on the tournament going in?
Well, I told our staff, you know, because we were trying to get off that 8-9 line. I said, guys, it don't matter for on that 8-9 line as long as we don't play Kansas. any of the rest of them we can play with. If it's, you look at Gonzaga or I thought we could play with any of those guys, and we'd shown we'd played with Baylor, although they were a lot better than when we scrimmaged them. But I felt like any of those guys we could play with except for Kansas. I thought Kansas was, now the tournament's weird and crazy things can happen with matchups and that sort of thing, but I thought they were by far the best team. But I think there was a bunch of teams that could win it. I thought Kansas could win it. I thought Dayton had a really good team. I thought, offensively they were so good. I thought they could win it. I thought San Diego State was really, really good defensively, but they're going to be tough just with the way they play. They're going to be in a lot of close NCAA tournament games. I think that could have been tough. And I thought Kentucky was coming on strong. I thought they had a chance. I thought Michigan State was coming on strong. You never want to play them in March. So I think it would have been a really, really good tournament, and there's no telling what would have happened.
Coach, we appreciate it, man. Just try and get through it. I know it's your energy level. It's tough for you and all of us, my man.
Yeah, we're good. Hopefully you guys are good. I know you're not traveling around to your restaurant, but you're stuck in the studios for now.
Yeah, man. It's an adjustment. We'll take care, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.